Missouri has always been identified as a water-rich state. Missouri gets different parts of the state, northwest part of the state somewhere around 31 inches, southeast part of the state about 51 inches. So about a 20-inch difference. Here in Columbia, we get about 42 inches of rain a year. So yeah, I was going to say the use of water and what it means to have a water-rich state is one of the reasons that we have very lax laws at this point for water use. We always think of water as being that resource that is always available. We don't think about having limits on it. And now what we're finding out is probably we should be looking at these kind of things. We should be thinking about not only what is the overall use that's required, but what are we, like I said, what are we stopping by having all these resources being used for one industry?
So the poultry industry in Missouri is primarily in the southern part of the state, primarily in the southwest part of the state. It's characterized by big integrated turkey companies and broiler companies with a smaller contingent of layers. So we're pretty big in both broilers and turkeys. I think we're 10th in broilers and 4th in turkeys. And overall it's about $2.5 billion in sales. So pretty big industry.
Because of the location and the price of the land, we have, in 2 counties in southwest Missouri, we have 800 concentrated animal feeding operations. These are units that produce 20,000 birds each 5 times in a year. That's 100,000 birds per barn. And to be a CAFO, they have 5 barns. So that's 500,000 chickens. Because they're all located down there in that, or most of them are in that southwest area, that's where we put our processing plants. You had heard me talk about the amount of water it takes. When you're talking about 1,200 gallons of water for every 1,000 pounds of poultry, and you start looking at the number of birds in that area, and that's where all the poultry processing units are, they require an awful lot of water. And it can't be recycled. This is water that has to be fresh, usable for human consumption to clean and package the birds. So all of a sudden you start seeing this huge amount of water being drawn out, and in this case most of it's in what's called the Springfield Aquifer, which we share with Oklahoma and Kansas, but Missouri is the #1 user of water out of that aquifer. I think it's over 87% of it is used in Missouri. The other states are affected very highly by this. Now, one of the things that has occurred is that in Oklahoma and in Kansas, those areas are not heavily populated, and they do get about 28 to 38 inches of rain every year. So unless they want to bring in industry, they don't really seem to notice the water loss very bad. But it also is one of the things that's kept industry from moving into that area. When you have any industry that can utilize a large amount of the available resources, whether it's energy, whether it's water or something else, all of a sudden you're looking and saying, what are we keeping from coming to our area because we have used all our resources to finance this one particular industry. Now, what it has done, if you look at it from the other side of things, it's also created a lot of jobs because you now have all this capability of having the poultry units down there. It's created jobs in the barns, it's created jobs in town. Then you have the processing plants, which have all created more jobs. So that feeds this huge agricultural industry that these rural communities need to really survive and thrive on.
And really that's not a huge amount of water. I mean, There's a lot of birds, but a big farm might go through 10,000 gallons a day or something. If you go to the processing plant, it's tremendous amounts of water. Where you're talking 10,000 gallons on the farm, it might be millions of gallons in the processing plant. And so that's the big water usage. And it's used to wash the birds, to wash down everything, to flow, what they call plumes in the floor to move like the feathers that have come off the bird. They put that in a plume and they use water to move that to the processing area where they make feather meal. Same thing with a lot of the guts and things like that. So water is used everywhere in the processing plant. And so, washing hands, washing everything, you know, lots and lots of washing of stuff. So, and, you know, I mean, you don't see too many factories in the desert, you know, and part of that is that there's water needed for almost every process. Even if you're making steel or something which is heat-based, you still got to cool things, and so they need water, and they still got to wash things, and you know, so water is part of it. But with any food product, there's a lot of water involved. You know, sanitation and constant, you know, battle trying to keep everything clean. So.
There are lots of potential solutions. Probably the biggest one when we talk about quantity is conservation. What can we do, each one of us individually, to help conserve water? When we talk about water quality, under Missouri law, we have what's called the riparian use law. If you have access to that water directly because you have property next to a stream or a creek or the river, you can pull out as much as you want. But then we hedge that by saying we also have what's called the reasonable use law. You can use as much as you want as long as you don't get greedy and stop someone else from being able to take what they need. Should farmers have that capability of doing that? I would. In a water-rich state, which Missouri has always been classified as, yes, we have plenty of water to go around. It's not a problem.
Got nothing on but water.